Hi, everybody. Jamie here. Just before we start this episode, the second episode of We Are Old, I wanted to come on and introduce Janis because actually in the recording I forgot to introduce her. So who you're gonna meet is Janis Thomas, who is the managing director of Look Fabulous Forever, a really innovative beauty brand that's designed to meet the needs of older women. I've known Janis for a long time, so let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to. Well, it's either called Aging Out Loud or it's
Or
called We Are Old. We might have renamed it in our
what do you
second
think,
episode.
Janice? What do you like better?
But I like aging out loud because it's consistent with my theme around invisibility, but,
Okay.
personal.
Well, we're,
Yeah,
we're doing a logo for We Are Old, so suck it up.
perfect. I mean,
Anyway,
I'm that works too. Yeah.
at the moment we're
Right.
aging out loud, but we might morph into being like Jack Black in High Fidelity. We might change band names, uh, and,
Right
be
now, we're,
something.
grandma's wheelchair or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I
But
mean, yeah.
but soon. But tonight we're going to be. What's the band that he is that night that he sings?
Sonic Death Monkey.
Yes, and then and then he sings Marvin Gaye and everybody loves him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Anyway,
god, that's a great movie.
great
That's a
film. I
great movie.
just keep watching YouTube shorts of that film. Anyway,
Yeah. Anyway,
welcome to episode 2, um, with Laura Salerno and me, Jen Hancock. Our guest is Janis Thomas, who we've just been chatting. I think I've known for 7 or 8 years in the UK. I run an events business. Janis is a sort of serial content provider and sort of all round thoughtful content producer at lots of. You're good, right? You speak at lots of things, and you're always very cogent and intelligent and thoughtful about everything you say. And I've sort of, when I'm not sure if you volunteered or I volunteered you, but anyway, you're here. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Right. And today's theme, this may be hopefully the most I say for the recording. Today's theme is invisibility. Laura and I have started this just for reference because I'm 58. We're not asking Laura how old she is or you, Janis. But the idea is that aging is coming. It's maybe not here quite yet,
We're
but
in it. Now we're
we're in.
in it.
And if we're in it, then what are the things that are affecting us? And we're trying to approach this whole thing with a sort of glass half full flavor, I suppose, even though some of the things that we're going to talk about are pretty dark. But invisibility is one of the things that was on our list.
Mhm.
So maybe, Janis, Laura, over to you, right? What does it mean? Because I have a feeling that it's possibly something that women have a stronger perspective
Do you
on than.
not experience it?
Let's come to me later, right? But this is not about
Okay.
me.
Okay. All right.
I'm told I'm very uninvisible quite often,
Uh-huh.
so I'm gonna move. I don't know. Somebody start, not me.
All right, Janice, what do you have to say about I know about the invisible I don't know if you've heard about the invisible woman syndrome, how women over 40 just kinda, like, fade away and become irrelevant, and we can't find our way anymore, so I didn't see invisible man syndrome. Um, so maybe that's what Jamie's referring to. So, good morning, Janice, and what are your thoughts on invisibility
Yeah,
and
so
getting old?
it's something that I have become really conscious on in the last 5 years. I joined Look Fabulous Forever, 5 years ago now, and it is a direct consumer beauty brand specifically designed for older women, which in the beauty industry, I've literally had conversations with people who work for big beauty brands and they consider an older consumer as someone who is over 25. The ageism within the beauty industry
Jeez.
is horrific. Even
Yeah.
if you think of very inclusive beauty brands like Rihanna's Fenty Beauty, they've done amazing things from a kind of skin tone perspective, but you still see the vast majority of the people they feature are young.
Yeah.
And I think, particularly because of the job I do, our demographic are typically women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Our core customers are women in their 70s. So I see their lives on a daily basis. We have a private Facebook group where our customers talk about their lives far beyond their relationship with us, and I have really been struck by how different those women are from the stereotype that we have of them. Like, particularly women in their 70s, you very rarely see them in advertising or in films or, like, particularly in ads. It's like they're very rarely included, and if they are, they're a stereotype. They're the zany granny on a skateboard, or, they're like, "Oh,
Oh,
it's, the
yeah.
wise grandmother," what have you. And I think particularly spending time with these women every day, they are colorful, vibrant women with rich lives and, um, y y full lives. It's like one of the things that we experimented with last year was live shopping, and it was an absolute disaster because our customers were never home during the day. They're like, "No, I've got,
Yeah.
I'm gardening or meeting friends or, taking care of grandchildren." And it's like they don't sit still for a moment. And how different those lives are from what we see has really made me passionate about this idea that we just don't. I mean, 90% of the time we don't show these women full stop, but how often we see them portrayed accurately is essentially never.
Wow. So they're not the anomaly. They're what we're talking about is that we are still vibrant. We are still relevant. We should be looked at or considered. And actually, I think this market now, right? Gen X is now entering retirement years. And I like with baby boomers, I know they started targeting retirement age more because baby boomer is such a huge part, like, and then the population starts to dip. But with Gen X, like, I don't know if you're on TikTok or Instagram or you're watching any of those videos or something, but our generation is a doer and we're actually respected and looked at in a positive way. So I'm wondering if we're going to be able to carry that forward as we get old. Like once we're in our 70s, will we not just be the zany grandma on a skateboard?
I
Will
hope
we be looked
so.
at more favorably?
And I think we also have a responsibility here because one of the things I am really, really struck by is how reluctant our customers are to post pictures of themselves
Yeah.
on the open internet. So I think there is part of this as well is as we get older, do we become more reluctant to share pictures of ourselves, thus kind of feeding into this whole situation, kind of we make
Yeah.
it worse if we choose to make ourselves less visible, if we choose not to show our faces because we have our own insecurities.
I saw a post this morning on LinkedIn, actually. There's a guy called Jim Meadows who is in our WhatsApp group. He's part of he works with an agency that looks after a lot of the social media talent in the UK. He was talking, the post that he wrote was all about persona marketing, which, we've all seen, right? Your your zany granny on a skateboard, whatever. He was saying, look, the persona stuff that we've all done for years is frankly bullshit. What you should be doing, because you don't know your customers, what you should be doing is watching Gogglebox. I don't know whether Gogglebox. Do you have a Gogglebox in the US, Laura?
What's that?
Okay, so
Go Go Box?
it's a horrible program. It's a British program where people of all sorts of demographics are sitting at home on the couch watching TV, and the camera is on them and their reaction to what's on the television. And it's an hour-long program just of audiences watching TV programs and chatting and
Is it
eating
interesting?
and laugh. Well, I have to say, I'm too posh to watch it. Um, I'm far too classy. I'm going to ask Janice if do you ever watch Gogglebox?
No, I don't watch a lot
No.
of unscripted TV.
Right. So, the interesting thing about this is it is those people that you don't want to know. Typically, people like us, we're all pretty classy, middle class and upper middle class people, with a pool. Uh,
Yeah.
or not.
One-
These people haven't got a pool, and they barely got enough. This is a lady who's 38, lives in Doncaster, and eats McDonald's every night and watches TV and binge watches TV. Those people are. It's a way of understanding, the blue collar and below blue collar working class in a way that a piece of ad research or market research just isn't going to inform you of. I don't think I need to go and check whether this age group, our age group and above, is represented on that show. But I think it is actually. I think there are a good number of retirees and kind of middle 50s and above people, but typically I don't think we get the audience that we're about to become. He said, I'm hedging.
Yeah, and I think
Isn't
there's a wider
represented.
point as well that particularly within marketing, it is a profession that is overly concentrated with people 25 to 39. And 25 to 39 is 20% of the population. So you are inherently very, very biased. And I think you're right, Jamie. It's not just about age, it's about class, it's about educational background, it's about income, it's about so many things that, we don't appreciate that our lens is very, very biased.
Yeah, because that 80/20 rule doesn't necessarily um, apply here, right? They say 80% of the purchasing is done by 20% of the population. So that age group, are they doing most of the purchasing? Or are they doing the viewing now because of social media, right? That's what they're online. They're looking at all this stuff, but they're not necessarily doing all the purchasing. Is that fair?
Yeah, the stat that I have is that actually 40%, sorry, 47% of all spending in the UK is done by over 50s. But we don't see
Wow.
47% of, of organizations being staffed by over 50s.
No.
Right. No.
The
Mm-mm.
reality is we've got all the money. I mean, because they haven't got any money, right?
Yeah.
Our first episode of Janice was on whether to give. Well, part of it was on whether we're going to bestow our money when we retire or when we die on our children, or do we plan to spend it all? And broadly speaking, Laura and I have agreed that we probably plan to spend a lot more of it than our parents spent of it. They were hoarding in order to bestow. We're spending in order to enjoy this next bit, broadly speaking. So let's share a bit of our own invisibility journey. As a bloke, and this is probably the only example I've got, Janice and I know each other well. We're quite often in the same room. Most of the people in my work social circle, I run an events business in a community of people like Janice, and I am now the oldest person in the room at those events. I look at those rooms and think, this is a room of 30 and 40-year-olds and maybe early 50s. As I'm now 58, I look at that room and think, I don't feel like I'm on the edge of it yet, although I did have an experience in New York where I felt like it was somebody else's event, even though I'd organized it. But I felt invisible with the other bald 58-year-old guy that was there. That's the only experience I have where I feel like but I can feel like there's more experiences where I'm in that room going, this is not my room. These are not my people.
Did you feel uncomfortable? Or did you like tap into some inner resource and just like, well,
I
I'm an
think
elder statesman and
at
they
that
will listen
particular
to
time
me?
of the day, I just felt tired, actually. Tired, and I wanted
It
to.
was nap time.
No, I think, yeah, you can easily feel like you shouldn't be there, and you should go.
Yeah. I know exactly I know exactly what you're referring to.
Come on then,
Go on
somebody.
then. Okay.
Or you go, and then
So my
we're gonna
career,
ask them to share, but she's got to share after we've shared.
oh yeah, that we were saving the best for last. That's the, okay. So in my 20s and 30s, I was in sales. Um, and that's how I met Jamie. And I never really loved sales, but I loved what it meant netted me. I made a lot of money and made great friends, socializing, everything. But then as I started to move on my career, my life changed and I had kids. I was always looking for something fulfilling. I found that my needs had changed, and the invisibility I noticed was increasing in sales as I was getting older. So I'm like, all right, I can't stay with this now. So I switched to event planning, which was fun, but it was still wasn't getting the job done for me. And then I decided to go back to school. I was like, okay, so what kind of a career path can I go into that allows me to be visible and relevant and that people will want to hear what I have to say? And I became a therapist. And I was like, well, that just kind of doesn't that kind of work? Because I have the life experience. I got the look, like I've been around the block a few times. And as a therapist, I have found my groove and something that I can carry in through life in my 60s and 70s. So that's my invisibility tale. And you're shaking your head, Jamie. I don't know why. But
Well, I think I'm not supposed to say that you've been around the block a few times. I think the right response there is just nothing. So I was both nodding and shaking my head in order to not get,
okay.
just like when you've been married for a long time, you know where there's a hole that you could just dig. So I'm not digging that hole. There you go.
Yes.
I'm not
Oh,
going
well
anywhere
done.
near it.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Less is more. So,
Okay,
all
Janis
right,
Thomas.
Janice, share your invisibility moment if you've had one.
Yeah, so when I joined Birchbox, I was the oldest person in the company. The next oldest person was 15 years younger than me, and, the average age in our office was mid-20s. So and I would been, like, well into my late 40s at that point. So I had to make a conscious decision to either say, "Yes, this is something I want to be part of, and my age isn't relevant unless I make it an issue," or I say, I'm uncomfortable in this situation and I bow out." And I I said, "Look, I don't think it bothers me if it doesn't bother anyone else." Often I felt like, the grown up in the room with some of the things that we would I think that still happens to me quite a lot
Yeah.
now. There'll be a
Yeah.
conversation and I'm just be like, "Why would we put sun cream on a piece of bread and put it in the toaster?" Which was a genuine conversation I had
What?
some time back. Sometimes I'm just like, no." And I think one of the things I've struck me, particularly because my background for a long time was marketing, is that I'd spent a long time caring about, the Advertising Standards Authority rulings and things like that. And I know what I've got a good understanding of the law and things like that, data protection and all of those things. And how many of those things seem to be quite alien to some of the younger people in the organization. And I think organizations where they don't think, "Oh, actually, we do need someone with more life experience and, kind of more broad general knowledge," I think those organizations miss out. But we have to be careful not to censor ourselves and not to be like, "I don't feel comfortable in this room, so I'm going to
Yes.
withdraw." You have to say, "No, I need to be present if I want to change this."
You have to. Otherwise that yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that.
That's really interesting.
But
Because you could easily just say, well, look, this is not my room. I met Rich Jackson from Avica for a coffee yesterday afternoon, Janice, and we both we were in Waterloo Station thinking that same one where I'm in a room which is for people 20 years younger than me. You either leave the room because it's not your room, or you stay in the room because those
yeah.
people need to be represented.
So what
Yeah.
is so daunting? What is so polarizing about someone that's in their 20s that makes people who have lived life and have great experience and have awesome skills, why do we feel like we have to like back off and listen to what they say or adapt? What is it?
Well, I think they're idiots typically. So I mean, I'll say it right. There's a fair.
Well,
Janice
you're
wouldn't
saying they're
say it.
idiots, but we're
No.
still kowtowing to that.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I the Janice's
right?
point is well made, right? They've got more. They haven't got as much information as we've got. They haven't got the to Janice's point
They're
about
idiots. Yeah,
the
you're
legal,
right.
right? It's the yeah, it's the naive expert. They are the naive experts, as in they don't know anything, but their instincts are the instincts of the market that everybody wants to go and sell to. That's probably that's really what's going on here, I think.
And ultimately, there's really interesting data that says organizations make the best decisions when there are people with a range of experience in the group, because if you just have experts, they will come up with less good ideas than a mixed ability group, because they're too set in their ways, they've had too much experience. And actually, the best possible decisions comes from people with a blend of different levels of experience.
Mm. Yes, and I think look, your I've always found that the references you make to 70-year-old women buying beauty products really fascinating because as a man, you don't think those people buy beauty products, right? You didn't. I mean, until I met you and you started that job, I didn't think that was a market, right? I'm sitting there going, oh, okay, that's now I wonder, do you feel like you represent them? Because I suppose in my mind you do. I don't know anybody else that represents that group, and they need representing.
Yeah, I think that for me is a really, really important part of not just what I do, but what we do as an organization. We're not just there to sell these women makeup. We actually want to change their visibility
Yeah.
within
Mm,
society. And so for me, a big part of what I do is going out and talking to people and making them reconsider the value of that audience, because often, you know, certainly my customers, she wants to buy luxury holidays and fashion and all of those things, but if her social feed is filled with funeral homes and incontinence pants, then,
Yeah.
so brands, I want to change the way that brands think about their consumer to value older consumers. And so for me, getting out and just having those conversations that makes people think, "Oh, almost every single brand I have spoken to says the same thing, that we had an assumption about who our customer was and particularly how old our customer was. And then we looked at the data about how old our customer actually is. And they will universally said our customer was way
Yes.
older than we thought that they were."
yeah. We ran a dinner in Amsterdam 2 or 3 months ago, and exactly that point, right? There was a lady from a fashion brand, a Dutch fashion brand, and she said, we think in the office, we believe our target audience is our target persona is Babette, who lives 20 miles outside Amsterdam, and she's 34, and she's a size whatever, and in reality our customer is this other lady who's 45, is a little bit larger and spends 4 times as much. That's actually, I suppose, the sad thing about that is that the lady that they actually sell to is trying to maybe look like the lady who is their target persona. And that's probably the other thing about all of us. But I think probably women suffer from it more, as our bodies start to slip, or I don't know what they're doing, but they're not cooperating, are they? They're, that's the
It's doing what bodies do.
they're doing what bodies do, but that's the real problem, isn't it? We're
Yeah.
not marketable because we don't look like they look,
Well, I
and
I
yet,
mean, and look who's bringing up the ranks. Look now, you see there's a new wave of plastic surgery. Kris Jenner, Lindsay Lohan. I don't know if you've seen, have gotten this work done that literally takes 20 years off. Kris Jenner she's almost 70 years old, and she looks like, my daughter was looking at her picture last night. She goes, "She could pass for her 40s." And she goes, "All right, maybe 50s." She goes, "But she does look amazing." And there's this standard. And Janice, you are working in the cosmetics industry, and I would think that you are trying to have women embrace the way that they look. without having to go to plastic surgery and all that. But it's almost becoming, it's so in your face. It's literally in your face. Be younger, look younger. I mean, Madonna was like she had some work done and she looked crazy. She looked like a woman from like a horror movie. I can't think of the movie right now. It was like Saw, I think from Saw. But um, now she's also had that surgery done, and now women everywhere are like, oh, so that's the standard now. This is what I have to try and reach. It's so unfair. It's so unfair. I think like
It is, and I think
mm,
what we find is that like, for example, in our advertising, we don't use any professional models. We use our founder, we use a professional makeup artist, and we predominantly use our customers. And actually, because we portray these women in an accurate way, like the engagement with our ads is off the charts because it just cuts through that they're just like, what is this? I'm not being told I'm too old or I look bad. I'm being told, beauty is eternal and, we've got some great products that can help you look your best.
Mhm.
Yeah, God. I got the train home from London last night and I had to stand up all the way home. I brought my son a bike and I had to schlep back. Anyway, I was listening to there's a program on Radio 4 in the UK on the BBC called Desert Island Discs, Laura, which at some point I'll go on about for about a year to you. I'm sure Janice is a fan as well. It's a very old program. It's a beautiful format. I listened to an episode with Dame Joan Plowright. Dame Joan Plowright, who is a famous actress, right? I was unaware until that program yesterday that she was married to, now I've forgotten his name. Who
Laurence
was she married
Olivier.
to? She was married to Sir Laurence
She
Olivier.
was? Oh my
Yeah,
god.
right.
Okay.
So I think when she was 18, he was 20 years older than her. He was married to Vivian Lee. They got divorced and he married Dame Joan, he died, I think he died 17 years ago. No, he died 17 years before this particular program was recorded. So he's probably been dead 35 years or something. He's been dead for a long time. What was odd about the program was there was this sort of, Sue Lawley was the interviewer, who was a sort of well-known British journalist. And so these are two women of a certain age. Sue Lawley was probably in her 50s when it was recorded, and I'm sure Joan Plowright was in her 70s. There was this sort of veneer, I suppose. There was this sort of, in the recording, there was this sort of homage to the man, and the two women involved were sort of supposed to be lesser of themselves. It was odd. I found it a really odd program, and it was probably 10 years old at least, the recording. But I sense now you wouldn't have had that same. We wouldn't have been talking about the guy at all, and yet this was a program that really, yes, it was about Joan Plowright, but actually it was about her ex-husband, who'd been dead 17 years. What the fuck? Forget him. She's amazing. Let's talk about her. I just wonder, is any of this wrapped up with the way that women are perceived now as their own person, rather than just, rather than in any way related, or to whoever their other half might be, or their, do you know what I mean? Is that
Yeah,
a
I think
thing?
certainly within the demographic that I market to, because I am in my 50s, I do see a disconnect because of their upbringing. Even, kind of a lot of them were very big in the kind of women's rights movement and kind of things like that. They have come from a time that was different in terms of the expectations of women and their lives and their careers. So I think some of that's baked into how they see themselves as potentially somebody's wife rather than
Mm.
somebody of their own right, in the way that even kind of the generation younger, I would say, kind of that Gen Z thing. I think there is much more identity. I think grew up in a world where you expected to have a career and things like that
Yeah.
that possibly. I have a weird perspective on this. I find it quite hard to wrap my head round because growing up, both my mother and my grandmother worked in quite senior positions, which in the
Oh,
70s was
wow.
very, very unusual. So my
Yeah.
Yeah.
perspective on this, I have come to recognize now, is very different from other people of my age because I had this kind of very unique, perspective.
I think and what you're talking about is, that was what was modeled for you. You saw that and you said, "Yeah, I wanna do that too." It could have got it could have gone in completely the other direction. You could have said, "No, this is not," but it was modeled for you, it empowered you, and that's how you wanted to proceed in your life. And I think that you're talking about Gen Z, Gen Z, what's being modeled for them and how they want to approach their careers and their lives. Um, I think that's gonna help change the landscape.
My ability to understand generation whatever is limited, right? I now forget who's gen whatever. So
They're
your
your
daughter,
kids.
okay,
Your
was yeah,
kids.
I'm assuming, right? So, but you've got daughters who are that age group, right? So your
Yeah.
eldest is what, 22,
They're
23?
21 and 22.
Okay, right. And my eldest is 21, 21, 19, and 17. So yes, they're all that group. I
Uh-huh.
think I think what's weird is that we're terrified on their behalf about AI and them becoming irrelevant in that regard. They're not, because
They're
for
not
them,
irrelevant
well,
or they're not afraid.
they're not afraid. I don't think they're
Yeah.
afraid.
They're afraid of other things. Their anxiety level is
Yeah.
just
Yeah, but they're not afraid of that. That's the thing that's terrifying us on their behalf. But I suspect that's just because we are who we are and we're becoming more scared. As people in our age, as we age, we become more scared of more things, right? Kind of.
what are you scared of? What do you mean?
I'm scared of you. Scared of, I'm scared.
Oh,
No,
that's warranted. Yeah.
well, no, I think well, I suppose well, I'm scared of not having backup Ribena. I'm scared of, I want backup stuff. I
It's
talked about it
Ribena.
this morning. I need backup. I need, I need back. I
What's
need backup.
Ribena?
You'll learn. It's what I drink at home. And if I get down to just like half a bottle, I'm like, oh no, you know, it's weird, isn't it? I just
I
think
gotta Google that.
you
Okay.
become slightly more concerned about things that are not concerning because
Well, often you have fewer new experiences as you get older, so you then feel like you're getting more set in your ways. So part of that you can challenge by having more new experiences.
yes, a smaller life. Are we having a smaller
A
life yet?
smaller life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look,
Well,
I think that's one of the things that we're all probably determined not to have for a very long time. But you want to, when I start working, I want to have a bigger life for a period of time.
uh
How do we all think about I don't know, Janice, how do you, I mean, I've no idea what, you don't have to tell me what your retirement plan is, but what's your view? Because again, because of who you are, the industry you're working in, your customer, all of that, right? Purpose and longevity. What's your take on that?
I mean, I find it really interesting because I'm conscious that there is this kind of crossroads coming up that, I'm in my 50s now and I would quite happily work for the next 20, 25 years. My parents retired at 55, and that's just like a horrific idea to me. I
Well,
want
then
to
I
carry
should.
on.
I'm only interrupting because tell Laura how old the founder of the business that you work in is, because that
Oh,
colours stuff, doesn't it?
she's 77 now. She was
Get
65 when
out.
she founded the business. So
Wow.
that is a really inspiring role model to
On
have.
its
And
own, right
yeah,
there. Yeah.
exactly. So that helps. And the fact that Trisha is like the ultimate advocate for learning new things and trying new things that, she's been in the last couple of years, she's taken up painting and, does all this kind of travel, and she's always trying new things and learning new things. So she's a real inspiration, and I think that will color my view. But yeah, if I would quite happily work for the next 20-25 years, but then how easy is it for me to get the sort of roles that I would like,
Mm.
and would that be possible for me to continue my full-time
Can you
executive
create
career?
them? But can you create them also? Where you
Possibly.
are in your career, do you have
Yeah.
to just wait to get that role, or do you have the knowledge and the wherewithal and the skill set and the experience, everything, to create that for yourself?
Yeah, and then certainly one of the things that I'm mindful of is trying to create the right opportunities for a portfolio career, experience on boards, kind of my speaking stuff, kind of all of those things. So I do have multiple skills to go for a more portfolio career. But one of the things about me is I'm not the person who I don't like startup. Like I don't want to start my own business. My skill is scale up, which means I excel in taking other people's idea and help realizing their ambitions for them. That's where I worry that are those opportunities going to be open to me, and do
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
to take
And
the
you know that about
portfolio?
yourself.
Yeah.
Boom. You know that about yourself. And I
Yeah.
want to throw in one thing. I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm going to do what I do best is cut you off. I was watching one of the podcasts that you did with Natola. What is that her name? Right?
I think, well, I don't know. I say Untola, but not on.
Entola. Okay, so last year you did a podcast with Entola, and you were talking about you were stuck in your career and you learned that you had to learn more about soft skills versus hard skills. And I'm sorry, I'm segueing away from invisibility a little bit, but I found that so intriguing. And what was intriguing for me, what was really cool for me, is that you were open to learning, that you were not stuck in your ways, you were not rigid, you were open to learning more about yourself. And I'm wondering if that's what you're talking about. Like you figured out that career wise, you don't want to do a startup. You want to come into a place and do that. And was that like you making that realization, um, has that played a key part in your career path now?
Yes, definitely. I think
Mhm.
it really informs my choices now about how I um spend my time outside work, also kind of how I think about myself. I think is actually like really important, being like, oh, actually I could do this and I could do that, and because I know my current career path might have an expiration date. I want to
Mhm.
lay down as many alternatives as I can in the meantime, so when I do hit that point, I'm not just like, "Okay, what do I do now?" I've
Yeah.
already thought about what might be next.
So that's you blending your soft and hard skills together. You know these
Absolutely.
strengths, you know these weaknesses, bringing it together, kind of thing.
Uh,
Mm.
And I wonder, obviously, knowing you moved from being a marketing director into being a managing director. I need to ask you about that. So there's a question there, right? I have a question. How did that work? How big a leap was it? So there's one question, but there's a follow-on question, which is being the managing director of the business that you are, given the customer and you are a younger version of the customer that you're selling to, all of those things. And the second question is, do you think there's another managing director role in Janis Thomas, or are you slightly, I don't know, not curtailed, but are you are you a managing director because of the customer and the role that you're in now? Do you know? I don't suppose I think it's not very. I haven't answered the question very well, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting point. I think there are I think the thing that makes me good at growing the business I'm working for is the fact that I'm not making assumptions about my customer, that I'm using data to make decisions and all of those things. So that is 100% a transferable skill. It's not like, oh, I've just learnt um, to market to this particular audience. This is the first time, the last 5 years I've been doing that, but the last 30 years of my career, I've been, working for organizations that were chasing the same demographics as everyone else. So it's, yes, there is always a danger that you get pigeonholed in the last thing that you did for whatever reason. But for me, it's the skills that I've developed here then would make me, I hope, a great managing director for a number of businesses. And I think that ties into your original question, Jamie, about the transition from marketing to a broader leadership role, because I think they're very related. If you told me probably 10 years ago that one day I would be managing director of a business, particularly one I didn't start myself, I would have been very surprised. And that was largely because the organizations I had worked for, the managing director or CEO, firstly didn't look like me. That, let's be honest, they were, grey haired white men, the majority of them. I joke that I actually worked for more organizations run by men called Jeff than organizations run by women for most of my career. So, yeah. Um,
That's
so they
very
didn't look like me, but also their style didn't resonate with me. That command and control, I'm the leader, I have all the answers, you're going to do what I say, that didn't resonate for me. So for me, it was two things that unlocked this career path. One was both seeing women who looked more like me, but also recognizing there was a different skill set that I identified with more, which is I believe that my role as a leader is to create a great culture and to help people expand their skills and experience and develop them. And that's my role as a leader. And that's what I do well. And that's what I think I can then bring to any organization is that creating culture, facilitating growth and collaboration and all of those things.
As you see, I've always been shit at all those things. Genuinely shit. I think the mindset. I mean, as I've been joking to Laura since we started talking about this stuff. I'm a corner shop owner, right? That's really the business that I'm happiest running is basically a corner shop where people come in and I can be friendly with people all day because I'm good at that. But the idea of growing it from a corner shop into something else is actually was never my plan. Not a good idea, and I've not been very good at it, if I'm honest. As all the people who've left the business that I've run will have attested to over the years, and never spoken to me again. Sorry, yeah, Laura, go. I'm just talking about myself again. That's what I do.
No, but we're all talking about self-awareness too. And as a therapist, I look at this stuff, these things in order to make change, there has to be some self-awareness. You have to be more malleable. You can't be so rigid. You can't be so stuck in your ways. Um, it's being open to being open to change and knowing your shortcomings and your strengths and how to use that to your benefit.
So basically, since I started talking to Aurora a lot, which is probably last October. When did we start doing? We had
Yeah, around there.
breakfast about last October. I think it was in New York. Now it's like every conversation I have with her is like a therapy session. So I'm getting
But
some
it's
form of
free. This is
yeah,
free. Well, you should be like,
free.
yay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Not great. I'm
Anyway,
not enjoying it.
all right.
So what have we missed?
So I'm gonna say because we're gonna have to we do have to wrap it up soon. Um, Janice, what parting words do you have, or any words of wisdom that you have regarding maintaining your visibility in life?
I would say all have a responsibility to be more curious about other people who are not like us and what makes them different and what their lives are like. But also, we have to be willing to stay in those rooms as they change and that demographic gets younger, that by stepping outside of those rooms, we're only making the problem worse. We need to
Yes.
stay and collaborate.
I love that you said that. We have to be able to stay because it is polarizing. It can feel oppressive or not oppressive. What's the right word? When you go into a room with a bunch of 20 somethings and they're ruling the roost, you have to be able to hold your ground and know your worth and bring it to the table. And that might be a gender thing because like I see Jamie staring off into space because he's like, "Oh, I've never felt like this. You know, I'm
No,
always
no,
the
I
cock
think
of the walk."
no, I think that, but I think that's very, very true because I think
Yeah.
effectively what's happening is you get to 8:30 at night at a sort of industry do that Janice and I might be at, and you feel more wrinkly, and your temptation is to go home
Right.
because you know the
Well, one,
golden
because you
sniffer,
want
the
to,
sniffer, one because you
and
one,
two, yeah.
but yes, you definitely you feel more wrinkly. That's it, right? You feel like you're not as shiny as those people. That's the nub of it, I think, is they're shiny and I'm not shiny anymore.
But you have to know that you are still shiny.
Yeah, you're both shiny, right? Just saying.
Know your shine.
Thank you very much. My lighting, I've just got, I'm both on my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, okay. Well, look, let's stay shiny, all of us, right?
Yeah. I think
Shiny, and
we'll go out on a high note. Stay
I'm
shiny.
going to lean into my wrinkles. Whenever I,
Do
whenever
I
I
have to?
shave
But
my, whenever I shave my head and beard, my wife says to me, "You look like a 58-year-old baby." So that's what I. So there you go. And today I'm a 58-year-old baby.
and that's love, baby. I love that she says that.
All right, guys. Well, look, thank you
But
very much, everybody, for that was fantastic.
thank you, Janice.
Thank you for having me.
This was just really interesting.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much, Janice. You've been great.
All right.
See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Thanks, Janice.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.